Hi, and welcome to Fear of Snowflakes, podcast number 8. I'm here with my counterpart, my friend, my better half, whichever you want to call it, Beth Linnett. And we have a guest today. We're lucky enough that John is joining us to talk about actually women in the workplace. I think this is kind of a cool topic, especially to have a man on to talk about it, which surprised me a little bit that you wanted to, John, but we're so grateful you're on here. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, I'm excited to be here.
So, Beth, do you want to start or do you want me to?
You can start.
Okay. First of all, that was the greatest welcome I've ever heard. You sound so excited to be on our podcast. We don't bite, I promise. Well, maybe a little bit, not really bad, so you'll be good. So, when we were talking about this, John, we you mentioned your passion about promoting women in the workforce. And so Beth and I were just kind of discussing, especially since, part of our target audience is the younger generation who is coming into the workforce, as well as, leaders who will be promoting and engaging with that younger workforce, the Gen Z force. And so you had mentioned that you have a larger portion of your leadership team that are female than male, and that
Yep.
you have promoted females more than males in a work environment. And we just thought that was kind of cool and would love to hear your take on that.
It was interesting as I was thinking about this morning and coming on your podcast today. I was kind of going through the last maybe 15 years of promotions of new hires and, successes as well into that. And I was somewhere between probably 25 total of people I brought in and or promoted. And that's probably somewhere between the 15 and 16 are were female, right? And out of that, I was looking and thinking about the success rate of that. Um, I can only really think of two out of that 15 or 16 that I would say weren't successes, right?
Wow.
And yeah, no, and then with that too, if I think back, those both those were both those were just probably higher on my side, right? So honestly, when I look at it, the success rate has been really well, and I've had not as good success rate um with male. I've had some, but it's been interesting.
I think there's a lot of reasons behind that. I really do. And I mean, I don't want to get into the whole dynamics of men and women and why it's easier to promote one over the other, as much as I think it's kind of inspiring to hear that female leadership is something that you invest in and promote. But if you've got that kind of a success rate, there's a reason behind it. And so one of the things Beth and I were talking about earlier is the difference between men and women in a younger age and their career driven maturity levels, right? Yeah. So don't you see that, Beth? I mean, as
Yeah.
that generation and that age.
Yeah, I also think women can definitely be more like empathetic, and I think people are appreciative of that. Um, yeah, I don't know. I also think sometimes they're more even-tempered and people like that. So,
You're not talking about me, obviously.
not you, but okay.
you, you
You're
won't
the
fit that
exception.
category.
I would never fit that one. But you are correct. You are hitting on something, Beth. I think that emotional maturity,
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about maturity levels, but emotional maturity, I think you're right. I think women at a younger age are more capable of engaging, interacting, nurturing, recognizing, people in general. And so that probably works really well into becoming leaders. Is that one of the reasons, John, you find success with women leaders?
I think that is. I think you see a drive for younger women to prove themselves. I also think, I mean, as times have changed, let's just talk about times have changed, right? I think women are seeing that providing for themselves, right? So that is providing that opportunity, and as they grow in the workplace, I think Beth is right. There's a whole nother aspect that they add two teams that I'm telling you what, I'm just going to say it, you can't have a team of one or the other. You have to have a good mix, as you always say, Heather, just in general of personalities and everything. But if you have a team of just of males, but you're going to miss the boat 75% of the time, and you got to have that right mix. And I think as you go forward and you really embrace female leadership, it's strong. Like some of my strongest leaders right now, and not only strongest, but people that I count on in the times that I need, like when as I'm doing what I do and spread thin, my go-to, I have two or three go-to, and one or two of them are that strong female leader. And that's just, I mean, all day, every day is that they're there to understand, to drive forward. And I keep thinking about how I've promoted. And Beth, you said something when we were off the air a few weeks ago, and we were just talking about this. I spent some time thinking about it. Is just the maturity level. Going back to that, right? It is you get that age, about that 28 to 30.
We're even talking younger than that.
Well,
like we're talking in your early 20s, kind of even.
Yeah, but even in that 28, the younger female is way ahead of where that younger male is, and they're probably already succeeding, ready to start talking about a leadership role, where you're potentially waiting for that, certain males to, like, hey man, the opportunity's there, are you seeing it? And they're not always seeing what's in front of them, right?
One of the things that we've talked about in the past is the idea that nowadays leaders don't just lead a part of a person, they lead a whole person.
Yeah.
Like people don't come to work and leave their emotions in the car anymore, or leave them at home. They bring them into the office, right? All of a human being nowadays when they come to a work environment, especially the younger generations, that's critical to them that they can be their whole selves in a work environment. But I think that might be what you mean, Beth, when you're talking about the empathy women have. They're going to be better at leading a whole person in
Yeah,
general
that's what I
because they're
meant.
naturally doing that, right? Is that what you're
Yeah.
kind of talking about?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like they have more of that like motherly instinct and want like the best for their team and want to know about a person outside of their work life. And I think that they're better at handling that a lot of
I think
times.
you're right. And I think that makes people trust them more
Yeah, for
and
sure.
work harder for them more. But then also it helps them to be able to figure out how to keep them long term, right? So we're
Yeah.
doing a better job of retention that way. So, John, since you're not a female leader leading females, and yet you still do a really good job of it, you must have a natural, innate, more empathetic style of leadership then. So for male leaders, which is important because this is like we're teaching leaders how to lead,
Yeah.
these younger generations and grow them too. But from a male leadership perspective, do you think that because you're more of a natural, empathetic leader, that makes it easier for you to lead women to success?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's easier to lead everybody to what you said. I think understanding that key, that key that you both just brought up, like I have to understand that I'm not leading someone just here at work. I'm leading, I'm also leading potentially their home life. And what I mean by that, I'm leading everything of them. And I may just be focused on numbers today, and maybe that's where I am because that's what I got to provide upward. But someone needs me in a deeper way, and I need to be there for them in that moment, right? And that's, I think, that empathy that we all have to understand is you have to sometimes step back and be like, hey, you know what? We all go through seasons. That's what we call it here, on the teams that I lead. Is we all go through seasons, and I've been through my seasons, and I've had people, everybody on the team come around me and pick me up and be like, hey, you know what, you're going to go through your seasons, and we got you. And now we do the same for each other, right? And part of that is building that. And when you build that, and now all of a sudden, regardless if it's female, male, and you're all kind of going, you know what, we're going to work in unison because we got each other, and we all know that life happens. And as you both stated again, is, coming to work with all of you, and when you're around a group of people that are willing to protect that, because sometimes you're going through a bunch of crap and you're coming to work. When you're part of a team that's willing to take care of you, then you're willing to take care of that person, and all of a sudden you got this atmosphere and culture. It's really cool to work with, and that empathy is a big deal, because if you're not empathetic, and you don't care about how people are coming to work, or you don't notice it, man, you're not doing good for yourself. You're not doing good for them, and you're creating an atmosphere where people don't want to come to you. And I think, Beth, you just stated it well. I think female leaders have the ability to notice that. But speaking from the male side of that leadership, Heather, and I think it's a great question, is we just got to open our eyes. Like, it's just
Yeah.
it's all it is not being about us. Is you have to see everybody for them every day, and you got to take the temperature, right, of the room, of the team leader, and you got to be like, you got to know them. And as soon as you're like, you know walk out of that meeting and you're like, you know what, something wasn't right with Heather, I got to go have a conversation with you, and not a conversation about where you are. Is like, hey, is everything okay? And I got to approach you in that manner for you to open up, so we can work through whatever you're dealing with and whatever that is. And I think more of that is that the other side of this. I want to spin this a little bit. What I've noticed with female leaders that I've promoted female leaders that some people would say, well, and you're not really necessarily promoting from the side of experience, but I've promoted from the side of attitude,
Mm.
willingness to learn, and giving opportunity. And when I saw the willingness to learn, the attitude, and then I give the opportunity and say, hey, I'm going to walk with you in this. I'm alongside you, because the first response is, huh, I'm not, I'm not qualified. Yeah, you are, because you're not expected to know everything, because I can teach attitude. And if you're willing to learn, I can teach you everything you need to know at the job. If you're coming with the attitude and willing to show up,
Yeah.
then make things. And also, if you see people that are willing to put others first, you can teach them everything. And I've done a lot of that, or where when I sit down and I explain hey, this is the next person we want to promote, people look at me internally, and that's something else where we've promoted a lot of internal female leaders. And if you would step back and look at it, you'd say, well, you shouldn't have, but they're all successful, because they're willing to learn, they got great attitudes, and then we just teach them, and then we get out of the way. And I think there's the other part, is being willing to teach and coach. When you see the right attitude, you see the right person showing up, it's not always about what they know. You can teach that, but man, when you can find that attitude and you can find someone that wants to learn, you teach them. And I think that's where right now the younger female leaders, just, they're hungry, right? They want to prove and move.
Yeah. I also think like how going back to how we were saying, like if you trust a leader more, you trust a leader more because they're more empathetic. And I think that if you build that connection with your leader, then people on your team are more willing and want to get to that next point, work hard for you because you do have that personal connection and you don't want to let someone down. Whereas if it's just a higher up that's telling you what to do and you're kind of just doing it, people are less motivated, I guess, to get to that goal or whatever.
Yeah. I think the one thing really wonder about, Beth, is because your generation is known for the idea that they won't stay in jobs for very long in general. Like, it's one of those situations where they want to experience as many things as possible younger in life to make a determination on what's best for them. I wonder how hard that is as a leader who knows that you're building these relationships with individuals that are not going to stay, and how you don't take that personal. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, but I also think that a lot of times people leave because they don't have that connection.
That's true too. I agree with you on that. Just makes you wonder. I guess we'll have to one day look back
Yeah.
and do some kind of a study, 5 or 10 years down the road, when all those individuals have been in a work environment for a while, to see whether they stayed longer than the average because of that.
Yeah.
If we focus on connection, I go back to what Beth just said. If we as leaders, male and female, focus on connection, and worry about connection, I fully believe we're not going to have to worry about losing the good talent, because connection is going to matter in the long run a lot more. Because I think as we go forward, and you both have said it, and you said it in other meetings that we've been in, right, is we're managing our full self. And when especially this younger generation comes to the table and they find someone that's willing to manage them full self, take care of the seasons of life I go through, that means so much more today to someone than, because when it's a connection and they know that, hey, you know what, I can come in and tell you that, hey, you know what, I'm struggling with, something at home right now. We're in a season, we're going through it. I'm going to show up and do my best, but I need to leave a little early 3 days a week because of this. When they know you're willing to accept that and work through that, and you have this team that's going to come around, they're going to then do the same for others. That's a connection that when you create it, people aren't going to leave, because you don't get that everywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a lot of times when people jump around at companies, they're not jumping around because they want the salary raise or anything like that. They're really looking for, I think people frame it wrong when they say they're looking for all this experience, whatever. I think it's just they want to find the company that's going to treat them the best, or they have the best connections with their coworkers or their leaders, because that is rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right, Beth. It's proven fact that if your best friend works in the same place you do, you'll stay a lot longer. So
Yeah.
it's building those relationships inside and outside work. And I think as a leader, we need to remember that and we need to promote that as well. And we can talk about that in a different podcast. But we really should talk about the fact that building community inside of your work environment, encouraging people to go spend time outside of work, encouraging extracurricular sports teams together, whatever it is, right? Um, is going to keep people engaged and feel community. And especially for Gen Z, who already says that they feel the most alone as a generation than any other generation, building community around them so they can feel engaged again. And I know they lost it during COVID and that kind of stuff, but building that community internally in your work environment and sponsoring and encouraging it, I think that is something women are really good at, because we have a natural bent to want to like create a party atmosphere, a family atmosphere, whatever you want to call it. I think that also makes us really great at leading, because we're creating that family environment.
Yeah, and I also think, like, talking about the retainment part, like once you find that, it's so hard to leave because you're gonna have to start all over again. And I think that's scary to a lot of people in my
It
generation.
is. It's scary to all generations, trust me.
Yeah.
Like the grass is not always greener on the other side. People like to
Yeah.
believe it until they walk away. I've had my fair share of individuals who have come and called me back after they've left and said, "Hey, I really want to come back to work at blank company
Yeah.
because this isn't what I thought." And it doesn't, it's sad, but it doesn't work. I mean, you usually have already hired somebody in, so it's not like there's an open position for them. Yeah. So thank you, John. I appreciate, one, that you promote so many women and that you see the value in women in leadership, because I think that's critically important. And female leaders have a lot to offer that is uniquely different. And for your insight on that. So I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning into Fear of Snowflakes, where every generation brings something worth listening to. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.